Good morning, everyone. I wanted to introduce you to Attorney Sean Connolly. He is a smart title attorney who will be talking to you today about VA loans and also about how you can get paid at the closing. And David Koch is actually a VA loan expert who will be more in depth about VA loans. So I'll let you take it away, Sean.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I am a smart title attorney, which I'm very thankful to be one, and I enjoy working with them. I'm also a veteran. I'm still in the Army Reserve, coming towards the end of my service, which will round out 30 years of service, not counting the time I was in college and ROTC. So during that time, I served on active duty. I served with the Illinois National Guard and the Army Reserve, who I'm with now. I served in the Middle East in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. I served in Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So, as I tell people, I need to get a new travel agent uh, because the Army has brought me to places I don't want to go again unless
All
ordered to do
right.
so. But yeah, so during my time, and I can just tell you, obviously, I know a lot of veterans and my time in the military, and we all knew like the VA loan is just something that we know that is a great um, benefit for veterans, and it might not always be the best fit. There might be another fit that's out there, but as David will go into the details of it is a great benefit. So it's certainly something, don't shy away from it. If you're not 100% sure what the details are, reach out to someone like David, or you could reach out to me so that you're giving your clients, so that they know all the options that are before them. So I would strongly encourage that. As David said, people that hear his presentation learn a lot. And I'm looking forward to learning as well because I don't know everything about VA loans, and I think it changes over time. I also just want to talk about like the smart title and how great it really is to work with them, especially for brokers, because you can get paid at the closing, meaning it's not a matter, oh, well, the check gets cut to your brokerage, and then your brokerage eventually, maybe not the same day, maybe not within a couple of days, will eventually cut the check to you. But smart title, if you use a smart title attorney, it will cut you a check right there at the closing, which I think is great. And also, just kind of a plug for me, if you have a veteran that's a client, we do give a veteran discount. So with that, I would like to turn it over to David. If at any time you have questions for me or for David or probably for anyone, throw it out there. Or if you want to just text me in the chat, I'll kind of monitor that as we go along. I want to thank everyone for being here. And don't ever hesitate to reach out to me with any questions. I'm here to help, and I enjoy, and Kathy enjoys. My paralegal is Kathy. We enjoy what we do, and we enjoy helping people. We especially enjoy helping veterans. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Sean. Thank you for that introduction. If you don't know who I am, my name is David Cook. I currently serve as the Main Street Young Professionals Network chair for this year. Last year, I was awarded the Affiliate of the Year for Main Street, and I also happen to be a VA loan expert. And the reason that I love the VA loan is that it is by far and above the most powerful home loan on the planet. It also happens to be the most misunderstood for a myriad of reasons that we are going to clarify today. One of which that Kathy's already, I apologize for, we were already talking about working with a veteran or concern for their FICO score. Fun fact, the VA loan handbook has no minimum FICO score anywhere inside of its guidelines. It doesn't exist. Now, lenders will put a minimum FICO score on what they're willing to underwrite to, but a minimum FICO score does not come directly from the VA. So you'll have mortgage lenders who will cut their minimum FICO score off at 620, some at 580, some even below a 580 FICO score, depending on what the credit criteria is that they'll be willing to do a manual underwrite. So for those reasons, whether it's someone with a 550 FICO score or an 800 FICO score, the VA loan is the most powerful home loan product on the planet. And those who understand it have a great opportunity to expand and grow their business and serve our bravest and finest here. So we're going to cover a myriad of VA loan myths that here. But first, just sound off. Is anyone here? I know Sean mentioned his service. Thank you so much. But is anyone here in our webinar today a veteran or a spouse of a veteran? You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself, or anyone else? Anyone had any previous experience with a VA loan transaction?
I have.
Yes,
Yes.
What was it like?
great.
Fine.
Yeah.
No
fine.
problems.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mine was a new construction, so there was no issues.
Yeah. Oh, that made the minimum property requirements
Right.
like probably
Right.
super easy. Yeah. Any concerns or issues that you have regarding a VA home loan, like right off the bat, or something that you've heard, something that you've had said to you?
I have something coming up that I think is going to be a like a rehab type property.
Okay.
And I'm guessing I have to note that VA will not accept it because it'll have some serious, I think, I haven't looked at the property yet, but from the owner, they're telling me there's some electrical issues and I'm not sure what else is going on. They had a inspection done already.
Okay.
So I'll know more, but it kind of sounded when I talked to him, I thought I probably have to exclude FHA and VA from even buying it. Is
Okay.
that still true? Like anything with,
Yes. So we are going to talk about minimum property requirements that
Okay.
are part of the VA appraisal. They do differ from FHA. They're not one and the same.
Right.
They are two different loan programs. Sounds like if someone does come with that, could be a good opportunity for a VA renovation loan or an FHA 203K, which are both the renovation versions of those products that do exist. And VA renovation loans also, they are on the market. They also exist for special adaptive housing as well for veterans.
So they can get a 203K construction loan to go with the VA loan?
Well, it would just be a VA renovation loan. So
Oh,
it would
okay.
be, yeah, it's just
Similar
VA
to FHA.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's conventional. It's home style or choice renovation are the versions of a renovation loan. FHA is 203K. VA is just VA renovation. It's just the
It's
renovation
just called
version.
VA renovation. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the renovation version of those products.
Okay.
But
And
we're going to
and
cover
it's still part of the loan itself, right?
correct. Yes,
Yeah.
just like if you have experience with an FHA 203K, similar
do.
process, same idea. It's just a VA loan instead of FHA.
Okay.
That's
And do
Yeah.
you offer that 203K?
we do. Yes. That is something that we have. All right. Well, moving forward,
David, is that
Yes.
only for primary residence?
VA loans are only for primary residences. That is correct. Same with FHA. Conventional, like if you're an investment, I mean, there are non-QM products, like they're specific for investors that are a different product sort. But specifically for VA renovation, that is just for primary residences.
That's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah, VA itself is just for primary residences. You can buy multi-units though. If you're familiar with house hacking as a strategy, where someone using like an FHA loan for 3.5% down to buy multiple units, you can do the same thing with VA and take advantage of the 0% down option. You can use the same
Right.
strategy.
But you have to show that you've already how do you say
That you
I
intend
went
to
through the
occupy.
process. You have to show that you're eligible to even be a manager of the multi-unit building.
Correct. Yes. So there are some additional requirements for like if you have investor experience already, you don't have to demonstrate that experience like you already have the experience. If you're a
Right.
first time investor, you have to get a property management, like that's part of the cost that you have to associate with.
Right.
There's some other reserve requirements that are there, but no, VA is a very powerful house hacking tool for that. If you find someone who's wanting to go that route.
Okay.
But first, just talking about the opportunity for the VA loan. Fun fact, the U.S. military is the largest employer in the country with approximately 2.8 million employees worldwide. And veterans are loyal by nature and will become your best referral source if you excel at helping them. Getting even more granular about the opportunity that exists here in Illinois. Illinois, depending on the census data that you listen to, I think is the 8th most populous state for veterans, most of which they're located here in Cook, Kane, DuPage counties here, just where our population is. We have approximately 493,000 veteran residents, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And in 2025, Illinois sold $3.5 billion in VA loans. 59% of them were purchases, and the average purchase loan amount was $322,911 there for the average purchase size. So pretty decent purchase size, loan size there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great opportunity and exists here locally in our backyard. So moving into myth busting for 6 very common myths that maybe you've heard, or the things that I get to hear a lot when talking about the VA loan. The first myth we want to address here, I've heard this before, 0% down equals a weak buyer. Probably the most famous thing and the most common thing I hear about VA loans, and what people know about it, is the opportunity for veterans to do 100% financing for that there is the capability for having a 0% down loan. And I've even heard from well-meaning, well-intentioned real estate agents like, oh, doesn't that make them doesn't that mean they're not super qualified? Doesn't that mean that they don't have any money to put down? And judgments will get cast on the quality of the financing and the quality of the borrower because there is the 100% financing feature. What the data actually shows us about the success of veteran home buyers, in 2023, 86% of veteran borrowers who ordered an appraisal closed on their loan. Also, the average FICO score for veteran purchasing in 2023 was 721. Although not required, in 2023, the typical veteran borrower had a down payment of over $80,000. And the typical veteran borrower has a gross income of over $9,400 a month and nearly $60,000 in assets. All of those statistics come directly from the Department of Veteran Affairs. For the one organization that's in charge of tracking all of these data on veterans, which they do a very good job of, it's all directly from them. Statistically, veterans have more liquid assets on hand, and they have the benefit of having the availability for the best home loan financing on the planet. So in terms of having the 0% down feature, I mean, who wouldn't, if they had the option, want a 0% down feature and not have to expend their well-earned, hard-earned savings in order to purchase a home? And the entire reason for the 0% down feature is, think of someone in the service, on active duty, PCSing throughout the country. It's to give them the flexibility to take care of their families as they're moving throughout the country and abroad, to not have them conserve their cash. But that benefit continues to extend for veterans who, once their duty has ceased or their time of service has ceased, that benefit still continues to extend. So it is a complete and utter myth that 0% down means an unqualified buyer for the VA loan. Second myth. I've heard this happen before. VA loans are hard to underwrite, where folks would be like, well, wouldn't it be easier to go conventional or some other type of loan? Here's the truth of the matter. This is a direct quote from Chapter 4 of the VA Handbook 26-7. Direct quote. Underwriters are encouraged to consider every possible appropriate factor in seeking a proper basis for approving loan applications for every qualified veteran. Now, that type of language does not exist in conventional loan guidelines. It doesn't exist in FHA, USDA, non-QM. Underwriters for any mortgage company issuing VA loans are encouraged to consider every possible appropriate factor for approving these veterans. Now, veterans, they still have to prove income, assets, credit. There are still rules and guidelines, but the authority and the power is in the underwriter's hands for these loans that eventually the VA will guarantee. It's in the hands of the underwriter. And so this sentence by itself makes the VA loan far more flexible for, does it make sense? Is there actual qualification for this loan? And what we can do. Here's also why lenders love VA loans. If you go down to the bottom section here, this comes directly from the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, or HMDA LAR data, so directly from that section of the federal government. If you take a look at denial rates for Q2 2025, just on purchases by itself, VA loans were actually pretty neck and neck in terms of what a conventional loan would be. So these are loans that are submitted into underwriting that are eventually issued in adverse action or denied in underwriting. VA loans, and depending on the quarter, depending on the month, like it'll be lower, maybe slightly higher, but here there's only a difference of 0.8%. Compare that to FHA, where submission into underwriting is up to 14.09. Delinquency rates for Q4 2025 directly from the Mortgage Bankers Association, VA loans are, within a percentage point of conventional. FHA is slightly higher. Veterans don't tend to default on their mortgages, even with the 0% down function. Think of conventional, you think of all the buyers putting 3%, 5%, 10% down, versus all the veterans who are, taking advantage of the 0% down function. You think, oh, if there's no skin in the game, they would default, right? Not so. Even FHA, where there's a 3.5% or 5% down feature. Lender protection. One of the reasons that lenders love making VA loans, for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, conventional loans, there's very little protections for that bank if, in case of default, for that bank to recoup their lost revenue if that loan defaults and they're the one holding the note. For Ginnie Mae, FHA, there's a possible buyout on the claim from the upfront mortgage insurance premium or the monthly mortgage insurance premium that the borrower is paying. For VA, there's 25% guaranteed coverage from the Department of Veteran Affairs for any lender that's issuing and holding a VA loan. It just is. But even then, take a look at the delinquency and default rates. Very low. It's a very well protected loan. It's fantastic. And this is one of the reasons why VA loans are the greatest loan on the planet. Myth number 2 or 3. VA loans take too long. I've heard this all the time, where won't it take longer? Won't it take longer to underwrite? Doesn't have to go directly to the VA. The Department of Veteran Affairs is not the one underwriting this loan. Every single bank that is issuing VA loans, they have 99% of VA loans are underwritten by lenders having automatic authority or underwriting authority, meaning that as long as it meets VA guidelines and they make a reasonable claim for if this is how it fits, that lender has automatic authority to approve that loan, and the VA will guarantee it. Unlike FHA is very similar. USDA, that has to go to get approved, but I imagine not many folks on this call are doing USDA loans that are out there, unless you're heading south or west.
Yeah.
But in terms of, this is the best available data that I could find for year-to-date 2023, directly from ICE Mortgage Technology. In terms of days to close, VA loans can still work relatively quickly, especially if you're working with a lender who's experienced in processing them and underwriting them and knowing what they're doing. Not many, the average mortgage lender will maybe do one or two VA loans a year, which is fine. Like, they're not hard loans to do, but there are some nuances to them. So when you're working with a veteran and you're working with, they come with that VA loan pre-approval, it's an opportunity to go and, call the lender who is issuing that pre-approval and say, hey, what's your experience? And we'll talk about very specific questions that you should ask that lender for things that they've done to protect yourself and protect your client for making sure that VA pre-approval is rock solid. Myth number 4, the seller must pay the veteran's fees. I've heard this one before, where the VA loan offer goes out and I hear from the buyer's agent that, Well, the seller doesn't want to pay the veteran's closing costs or be forced to pay the veteran's closing costs. Not true. Where that's a very common myth, where I think some of it, and it has to do with a misunderstanding for what's called allowable fees and unallowable fees. This is a very mortgage, like lender specific thing. So this is not going to be on the final exam, but this is how it works when you are talking with a lender in terms of what's considered an unallowable fee. And there's a tolerance for how many unallowable fees there are. So if your mortgage lender is charging a 1% origination fee, which again is also very rare, all of the fees like these, whether it's called a settlement fee, underwriting fee, application fee, processing, pest inspection, all of that 1% fee has to cover all of that. Now, that's very thin margins in mortgage lending world, so that's probably not going to be the case. But anyway, this is, in any case, this is how the VA guidelines are written. It's very rare. You're probably not going to come up under it. But that's how, one of the things to cover. Now, one of the bits of confusion that I have heard is in regards to the VA pest inspection and who can pay for it and who can't. Now, it used to be in the state of Illinois that veterans could not pay for their pest inspections for the wood destroying or infestation, like that particular thing that the VA requires for fees. It was only like $100 to $150, but I remember in the past in my career, the seller doesn't want to pay for it, or they're refusing to pay for it, over $100 or $150. So this is a VA circular, very specific. This is a very specific circular dated June 15th, 2022. Effective immediately, VA is authorizing in advance as a local variance that veterans may be charged wood destroying pest inspection fees where required by the notice of value on the appraisal. So if you haven't had a VA loan transaction and you remember that in the past, the veteran can't pay for the pest inspection fees. In Illinois, as a local variance, they are now allowed to as of 2022. So that is an update. The way that the VA makes updates to their guidelines is they issue these things called circulars. And as lenders, we're supposed to be paying attention to these. Some more than others. If VA loans are a specialty, if it's not, you're maybe not paying attention to these. But rather than just updating the guidelines, they issue like a little amendments, almost like a little Bill of Rights to their constitution that they have. And these are the things that we have to be paying attention to. So if that's a new update that you didn't know, all you got to do is just reference this circular for the buyer being able to pay for their own pest inspection fee. But also VA seller concession rules. Here's the rule directly from the guidelines. Anything of value added to the transaction by a builder or seller, the buyer pays nothing additional, and anything is not considered customary. So there is a 4% rule in items that are limited by the VA seller concession rule. These specific items, if you are receiving a seller's concession, these specific items are limited by a 4%. Like there's a cap on how much you can receive in seller concession. And these are the specific fees that are limited for being paid. The VA funding fee, prepaids, temporary rate buy downs, payment of extra points, and the payoff of credit balances or judgments. By the way, fun fact, the seller with the seller credit can pay off a veteran's debt to help them qualify. So if there's excess seller's credits on your contracts and your veteran has a credit card bill, maybe it's like $5,000 balance and there's $5,000 seller credits that's left over, they can get that paid off at closing from the seller.
Wow.
FHA can't do that. Conventional loans can't do that. VA loans can. It will save your deal, like whether it's a DTI qualification purpose or even just putting them in a really good, financial situation here. If you don't know what to do with your excess seller credits, you can help have them paid off the debt. But these are the things that are going to be capped by a 4% seller credit here. Mm-hmm. So, FHA is 6%, conventional is 3%. There's a 4% limit just for these items. However, things in addition to the 4% seller's concessions, sellers and lenders can assist with allowable closing costs. So anything in the allowable category, not the unallowable, above the 4%, and points appropriate to the market. So you can exceed the 4% limit for these specific items. The only thing that apply to the 4% limit are the things that are on the previous slide here. That is something that you don't have to worry about as the real estate agent. I mean, if you want, as a rule of thumb, it's like, all right, 4% in the back. But if we need more, you can, or you're able to get more, you can possibly help the veteran buy down their rate. This is going to be something that your lender is going to assist you with, or a guideline that they should know for, hey, this is what we can do for that. But if you're writing contracts and you just want to know a rule of thumb, you're not going to get in trouble with 4%. But no, in some cases, you can't exceed that 4% for very specific things. Also, I tend to talk, so if there's any questions, you could raise your hand here in the Zoom feature or just put it in the chat. Be more than happy to answer them for you here. All right, so concessions scenario, just a real live scenario here. Say you have a purchase price of $400,000. There's a seller contribution of $20,000, which $20,000 of 400,000, it's 5%. So it's a 5% seller's concession that's going on here. Say we're going to pay off debt at closing of $11,000. There's $9,000 of closing costs. How much is the veteran going to bring to closing if they're doing 100% financing?
Zero. Yeah.
Zero on a $400,000 house. That is the power of the VA loan.
Although I have to say, seller contribution like that is not normal right now.
It's
in
not
this
typical
market.
for our market. It's
Right.
more of a, if you have any veterans moving to Arizona, Florida, Texas,
Yeah. Yeah.
then it is. Not specific to our market. However, things
Right.
can change. And sometimes things, house to house, situation to situation. But
Right.
as a back pocket, for something that somebody else doesn't, something to keep in your back pocket.
But they
Right.
can they can inflate the purchase price and take advantage of those options
Mhm.
with the lower
Yes.
interest rate than their credit card.
As long as it appraises, like as long
Right.
as the property appraises, and
Correct.
we're going to talk about the VA appraisal too, because I think this is the most in-depth myth that we're going to cover, because there's very specific features to the VA appraisal, including the minimum property requirements, but also features that make it better, quite honestly, than even what a conventional appraisal would be. And we're going to get into that. So VA appraisal. From the Department of Veteran Affairs in 2023, VA appraisal timelines averaged 7 business days. So from the time of acceptance for that VA appraiser, they have up to 10 calendar days to get that report into the VA, which, by the way, the VA appraisers, it used to be like back in the day, like that appraiser also had to be a veteran. That's no longer a rule anymore. The appraisers that are going out and doing VA loan appraisals are the same. It's the same appraiser that you're going to get for a conventional loan or an FHA, but there are specific guidelines and requirements that they have to do and fulfill to be a VA appraiser. So whether an
And were
appraiser is
there-
doing, so
Were
they're going to
there
have
were there issues during the shutdown when the government shut down? I remember
there were
hearing stuff about
there were
it.
some delays, not
Yeah.
like the Department of
Okay.
Veteran Affairs didn't completely shut down, but in terms of like the back
Right.
end processing, there were some delays.
Okay.
USDA completely shut down. VA loans did not. There were
Okay.
slightly slower turn times in terms of the notice of values,
Right.
but it wasn't a complete shutdown like how USDA was.
Okay.
But I mean, the numbers, they averaged 7 business days, and then 90% of initial VA purchase appraisals met or exceeded contract sales price for the year 2023. Depending on who you talk to, I've heard
Yeah.
companies that I've worked for, or the current company that I work for, we did our own survey of over 1,000 VA appraisals. Only 1.5% didn't meet sales contract price.
Okay.
So depending on the data, this is just the data from the VA, but I know sometimes folks worry about that. The data doesn't support, mass time, but the VA loan has 2 appraisal processes that make it infinitely superior to even a conventional loan here. The first process is called Tidewater. The second is called reconsideration of value, which is pretty awesome. The first is called Tidewater. Sounds like a scary word, but it's actually like really cool. How many times do you wish, like, raise your hand if you've had a conventional loan offer auto listing and it didn't appraise?
Yeah, sure.
Raise your hand. Cool. All right. So like everybody, right? How would you have liked to have gotten a fair notice or a fair warning from the appraiser beforehand that they were having trouble making value and that it wasn't going to appraise, and you would like an opportunity to talk to them about it to support value?
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Would you have liked that opportunity?
Yeah.
That's exactly what Tidewater is. So this is how the Tidewater process goes. And it's something that the lender is going to receive and has to communicate to everybody on the transaction. So the Tidewater process is the appraiser has not fully given value yet. The appraiser initiates a Tidewater alert, at which point Tidewater is issued. And essentially that's the appraiser notifying everyone in the transaction. It's them raising their hand to say, hey guys, I don't think I'm going to make value and I need some help. At which point there's 48 hours to go. It starts the Tidewater clock. You have 48 hours from that time of notice to turn in at least 3 comparables to justify the value that you are trying to make. So it is your opportunity as a listing agent or a buyer's agent to talk to the appraiser and say, hey, this is how we arrived at our value for our list price. Here's our homework. Are you considering these, facets for what you're doing? Phase 2 then happens. The appraiser has either, one, received the comparables to support the purchase price that have been turned in. They've received comparables that do not support the purchase price. So hopefully the listing agent has done their due diligence for why their value is supported. Or third option, which is the most tragic, they've received no comparables or response within that 48 hours. Sometimes Tidewater will get initiated and it'll just be dead silence on a transaction. Don't be that real estate agent. You have an opportunity to respond. But in the past, I have had it like, what's this? Tidewater? We didn't appraise. Boo-hoo. Oh, this sucks. Like, no, you have an opportunity to respond, to take the time. So understanding how this process works automatically makes you more knowledgeable than most real estate agents out in your market when you have a VA loan, because you have this process to go through. So if your lender reaches out and said, hey, Tidewater's been initiated, here's how we need to come together. Can you please give me your supporting comparables for how you arrived at value? Talk to your team. And so it's everybody coming together to keep the transaction together. The last thing you want to do is just go into your hole and be like, oh, we didn't appraise. Too bad. The last phase here is that the appraiser issues a value, and the appraiser sends the appraisal to the lender for issuing a notice of value. All right. The second thing that you can do is what's called a reconsideration of value. Phase 1 of that is the lender receives the appraisal back from the appraiser. The staff appraisal reviewer, the SAR, enters the notice of value in the VA system, and that value is attached to the property and the veteran's social security number for the next 6 months. This is a distinction from FHA. I've gotten many folks getting confused over like, oh, like on an FHA, like there's an FHA appraisal, that appraisal sticks for 6 months. I don't want it. I don't want a VA appraisal to stick for 6 months. That's not how it works for a VA loan. So an appraisal will stick to the property and that veteran together for 6 months. So the way that it works is, say you're under contract with a veteran and it doesn't appraise, right? And then the veteran decides, hey, I'm going to switch lenders, but I still want to buy the same property. They would have to use that same appraisal because the appraisal is tied to the veteran's social security number and that property together. They're linked together. Now, say the contract blows up for whatever reason, and another veteran comes along and they want to use their VA loan benefit for that property. They order a brand new appraisal for that property because it's not the appraisal to the property, it's the appraisal to the property and the veteran together. Unlike FHA, where it's just, nope, this is the FHA appraisal on this property. for the next 6 months.
Mm.
Too bad. So sad. Does that distinction make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. It's a bit of confusion. I've heard that before. I have a phrase, don't FHA my VA.
Yeah.
Or I think most, because they're both government loans, I think people think
Right.
like, oh, it's the same rules, right? Nope. HUD is the one writing the rules for FHA. The Department of Veteran Affairs is the one. Same thing with condos in the approved condo list. Like, oh, my condo is not approved for FHA, so it won't be for VA either. Two separate lists, two separate
Oh,
sets of
wow.
criteria.
That I
Mhm.
didn't know.
Yep. So just because you're not approved for FHA doesn't mean that you can't get a condo approval for VA. And the process is actually a lot faster and a lot quicker on a VA loan than it is for FHA.
And
HUD is like pulling teeth.
is there a
VA
list
is much
somewhere that
faster.
you can go to
Yep.
find that?
Yep.
The same way that there is for FHA?
Yep.
Okay.
It's out there. Now it's a different source and it's with the Department of Veteran Affairs. It's not a
Right.
HUD,
Right.
but it's two separate lists. It's not the same.
Okay.
All right. So that's reconsideration of value. Here's the really cool thing. Phase 2, after the notice of value has been given, the veteran can request in writing for the lender to initiate a reconsideration of value. And here's what the ROV is. The staff appraisal reviewer at the lender sends a requested dollar amount for the new value to the SAR at the VA, who has a 15% authority for approval. So this is really designed for veterans who are PCSing as well, but you can do it for non-active duty members as well. Essentially what it means is for the veteran, if they write a request in writing that they're wanting a reconsideration of value for their move to support the value, the VA has a 15% authority to overrule the appraisal and give a new value. It's designed for veterans who are like, hey, I need to get to my new post. We need to get this loan to go through. So the VA has up to 15% authority to overrule the appraisal for the value to serve that veteran and their family for that. Now, there has to be good reasoning why. It can't be, but we've all been in those situations of like, hey, it just underappraised by 1%, 2%, 5%, whatever. Here's the stated reason why for how it'll serve your family. You can request it. It doesn't have to be accepted, but again, it's a tool that you have in your knowledge tool belt that you can use for that. And this is phase 2 is really something that's going to be initiated and worked by the lender that you're working with. So making sure that your lender who you're working with, if you have a VA pre-approval, knows this process and knows how to initiate it if it needs to come to, like, if it happens. I'm not saying it will, but it's one of the features that exists in the VA loan that doesn't exist in other loan types. So talking about distressed properties or properties that just, they need some love. They need some TLC. Here, the minimum property requirements that are in Chapter 12 of the VA handbook. Here are the basic things that they're looking for. Is the property safe? Is it sound? And is it sanitary for that particular veteran and their family? Every NPR falls into one of these 3 categories, making sure the property meets all of them. Example of NPRs, lead-based paint prior to 1978. That's a common one with FHA. So peeling, chipping paint, that is going to be required to be repaired. It's the biggest one that comes up on any VA appraisal, and there's just not really a way to get around it. The good news is if you have a well-maintained property, depending on the area that you're selling in, and it doesn't have that, you get a VA offer. Fantastic news. You don't have to worry about, here are the surprises for what's going to be on here. The roof, there is a requirement in there that there is a reasonable economic life to the roof remaining there that's in the VA guidelines. So if the roof is in rough shape or it has like less than 5 years of life or estimated life remaining, that is going to be an issue on a VA appraisal. The heating needs to be working. And if you're on well or well water, there is a private water well test that does need to be done by an independent third party. What isn't an NPR? Cosmetic work, shades, shades for windows, updating or if it's outdated, yard work, unless if it's causing damage. If it's cosmetic in nature, it's not a minimum property requirement. And if you're wondering where can I find the complete list, I'll get to that here. The big red flags that you want to look for: chip paint, guardrails for more than 5 steps or 3 steps. That's another one that is common between FHA and VA. Rotting wood. Just be aware of that as you're taking on the listings and listing appointments. If you want to find, we'll get to I keep thinking it's the next slide. Fun fact for minimum property requirements: you can request for them to be waived on very specific items. They have to be approved by the VA. So the veteran has to request a minimum property requirement waiver. Has to be requested in writing. The property still has to be habitable from a safe, sound, and sanitary perspective. And it has to be contributory to the value of waived item. Contributory value of the waived item must be considered in an estimate of the market value. So it has to be considered there. But if there's, for whatever reason, there's something failing, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, it wasn't a waiver, but it's something that we did. A recent example, it was a VA loan in Bloomington, Illinois, in an older home. I think the home was built in 1920. And specifically in Bloomington, for those older homes, it's very common that the foundations, they just have bowings in the wall, just the pressure for the ground to be putting in. So there was some minor bowing in the wall. The previous sellers had steel braces put in to counteract or remediate the bowing of the wall. There was a VA loan that we were accepted on. We got an engineer cert certifying the work that was done for the remediation of the bowing wall. It was not considered a minimum property requirement for that because we gave the advance notice up front for the remediation of the safeness, soundness, and sanitariness of the property. So there are things that you can do up front there. And if you have a question, talk to your VA lender. Also, if you have a question too, the Regional Lending Center, which for Chicagoland is Minneapolis, St. Paul, they take questions from real estate professionals. For if you have questions about something on VA loan guidelines, they're there to help you for that. But you can request minimum property requirement waivers. It has to make sense. It can't be, there's a hole in the roof. Can I get that waived? No. Like that's not in the best interest of the veteran, their family, the property. Like, it has to make sense. I've heard a story of like, oh, the microwave was gross. The microwave was gross. You throw that away. Like,
Right.
or
I have asbestos tiles in a listing that I have currently, but the tiles are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But
right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
can you request a waiver for something like that?
Oh,
I mean,
asbestos
it's
tiles.
habitable while he decides
As long as it's
to,
not chipping.
Right.
I would have to look that up for you.
Okay.
If you want to look that up, here's where I would look that up.
Yeah, let me grab that.
So this QR code, it's a direct link to Chapter 12 of the VA Loan Handbook, the 26-7, that covers all of the minimum property requirements that are going to be looked for by the VA appraiser.
Say that again, Chapter 12 of the...
Chapter 12 of the VA 26-7, the VA Lender Handbook. So if you want to know, hey, what is the VA appraiser actually going to be looking for on their VA inspection along with the value?
Okay.
Here is the list for what they're looking for.
Right.
It's a direct link to Chapter 12 of the handbook. So if you had something like asbestos tiles, you could search that. Or if you had further questions of, hey, they're in good shape, they're not chipping, like, you can call the RLC, the VA RLC, the Regional Lending Center, and you can ask specifically, for guidance there. Yes, Kathy, either agent can give comps. So
Thank you.
on the notice of value. Just don't, what's the number? If you Google RLC, Minneapolis, St. Paul, it should come up. And then through the phone tree, it'll be VA loan requests. I call them, they're a little short, but they're nice. Like, they'll really help you. It's not like, it's not like Von Mar customer service.
Number? I think it was 26-7, Carol.
Yeah, the 26-7 is the VA loan handbook. But for the RLC, the Regional Lending Center, if you just Google Minneapolis St. Paul RLC for Chicago. All right, does everyone have QR code for to follow? Even if you just want to bookmark it for where it is. All right, moving forward. Oh, this is a big one. You can only have one VA loan at a time. Who's heard this one? That if you
Yeah.
already have a VA loan, you can't have another one.
Right.
I'm happy to report that that is unequivocally false. You can definitely have more than one VA loan at a time. And we're going to talk about how and what the calculation is, which you, as a real estate agent, I mean, it's fun. It's good for you to know how it's calculated. It's not your job for calculating what the remaining entitlement is or how many VA loans someone can have, because that qualification, there's 3 concepts to know that every VA lender needs to know for figuring out what, not only how many, like you can have as many VA loans at the time. The question is like, what is going to be your eligibility for the 0% down function of that? But there's 3 concepts to know. And this picture right here, it's called a certificate of eligibility. It is quite literally the golden ticket for any veteran to know whether they are eligible for VA loan financing. The big question that you need to ask if someone comes already pre-approved with a VA loan is ask, great, did you supply your certificate of eligibility or did your veteran pull your certificate of eligibility for you? Because if someone issuing a VA pre-approval without the certificate of eligibility, it's like issuing a pre-approval without checking credit. It's like you don't even know if they qualify or even if they can get a VA loan. Like, because this is the document that one is going to tell you how much entitlement that you have remaining. Or sorry, the 3 concepts that you need to know from the certificate of eligibility is eligibility, entitlement, qualification. Eligibility is, do you actually, are you eligible for a VA loan? Did your time in service qualify you and your either discharge of service to qualify you for receiving a VA loan here? And there's things that would make you ineligible, like dishonorable discharge or not enough time in service. The certificate of eligibility will tell you how much entitlement that you have remaining. And then lastly, thirdly, qualification. That's your normal pre-approval practice you're going to do, income, assets, credit verification to make sure that you're actually qualified for the loan that you are applying for.
David?
You can be, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so I just want to point out, I think where he's talking about eligibility, there, your characterization of service when you leave is very important. I think we've all heard like honorable discharge. So when you have an honorable discharge, which most veterans receive, I mean, you really kind of have to do something to get something other than an honorable discharge.
Yeah.
But so when you get an honorable discharge, it just means that your access to VA benefits is full. The next one is that you might hear of a general discharge. So now your benefits are starting to kind of be eroded. Then there's like other than honorable. It's not just honorable and dishonorable. There's other than honorable, and they're fully eroded. And then there's just dishonorable discharge. So yeah, so really what David's talking about here is like with that, it's like, so what we have to be careful about if someone says, well, if I'm eligible for this, I should be eligible for the VA loan. Not necessarily.
Correct.
Because,
yeah.
Say if you get general discharge, you may be eligible for some VA benefits. You may not be eligible for others. Thank you.
Yeah. And if there's any questions regarding that, the certificate of eligibility is the document that clarifies whether someone is eligible or not. This is the thing that tells all. There's other features on here too, like whether someone is funding fee exempt, whether they receive service-connected disability for that, they have a disability rating with the VA, how much that monthly entitlement is, or if there's any outstanding VA loans that are there and what entitlement has been charged already. But these are the qualifications, whether someone's eligible for the VA loan, how much entitlement they have remaining, then qualification. That's for the lender to determine through the regular loan application. So eligible, veteran has earned the VA home loan benefit. Qualification, veteran qualifies based on their income, assets, and credit. Then entitlement, how much entitlement is remaining. So documents that are needed to obtain a COE, if it's not readily available through the Department of Veteran Affairs, it's active duty, it's a statement of service from their commanding officer. Veteran, it's going to be their DD 214. If someone served in the National Guard, it would be their NGB 22 points statement. And if they're in the reserves, it would be a statement of service, point statement, and a copy of their discharge paperwork. For many veterans, it's, I served in the Navy, I was deployed here, it's going to be their DD 214. But if it's the National Guard, you're talking to someone who served the National Guard for 6 years and they have the requisite point statement, it would be the NGB 22 there for requesting it. For most recent veterans, it's going to be electronically eligible that, your lender would be able to go into the VA WebGOY, the portal, to just pull the COE for them. But they can also pull it themselves. All right, entitlement. Here's the good news for all of this math. You as the real estate agent don't have to figure this out for your client. This is your loan officer's problem to figure out. And here's the basic math, really, is how it works. But it's good for you to know this because if you're working with a loan officer and it's like, oh, did you calculate their entitlement? Did you pull your certificate of eligibility? Those are just basic things that they need to know. And if they don't do either of those things, it could result in problems down the line for your pre-approval. But here's how entitlement works in terms of how entitlement is figured. Every veteran has two sets of entitlement. You have your basic entitlement. Basic entitlement is $36,000 of entitlement that was given, with the GI Bill and the formation of the VA loan. This is the entitlement that you have. It's 25% of $144,000. So if your sales price is anywhere from, $0 to $144,000 for the sales price, it will always be $36,000 of entitlement that's used. Now, that's just your basic set of entitlement. There's an additional set of entitlement called bonus entitlement, because rather than going back and completely reforming the bill that created the VA loan and giving veterans the entitlement, Congress just said, well, we're just going to create a new bill and it's just going to be a bonus set. So now you have two sets of calculations. Super confusing. Instead of just repealing it and giving one, now you have two. Fortunately, this is your loan officer's job to figure out. But here's another facet that we want to talk about. Technically, also, we talked about there's no minimum FICO score inside the VA handbook. There's no such thing as a maximum VA loan amount either. That if a veteran is qualified enough, and if they have the eligible entitlement remaining from their basic and their bonus set of entitlement, there's no such thing as a VA jumbo loan. It's just a VA loan for what to do. So I've had colleagues down in Texas that for a retired full bird colonel, $4 million, 0% down loan. It can be done. It's the best jumbo loan on the market for well-qualified individuals who have VA loan entitlement and that are well-qualified. It is. But the bonus set of entitlement, veterans also get an additional bonus $208,156 of entitlement if they buy over the price point of $144,000. That $144,000 came from, way back in the day when the GI Bill was originally done. But they get that bonus set there. And that changes, there's more entitlement every time the conforming loan limit goes up every year. That's how that number is figured. That number is 25% of the county max here in Illinois, or the loan amount, whichever is less. And then you have to buy a home that's at least $144,000 and $1 there. So going back for figuring out how much entitlement is charged, that's right here. But based on how much entitlement is charged, this is going to give you the qualification for, how much is available for them to use their 0% down feature. So if they have charged entitlement, they can still use their VA home loan. On a previous loan, maybe they use their VA loan once to buy a primary residence, and then they vacated that property and now it's an investment property. for what they have. This is common for a lot of veterans who PCS, like, oh, I have an investment property in Virginia and Georgia, and now I'm here home in Illinois, and so I have one loan there, one loan here, and another one here. They can still use their VA loan. They just might have to be required to do a down payment for that particular property based on how much entitlement that they have charged there, or they have to get their entitlement restored to them. So that concept makes it, fortunately, again, and I cannot stress this enough, this is the job of your lender to figure out what their max loan amount is based on their 0% down financing or whatever it is. They can do more. They just might have to put a down payment on it as well. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Here, perfect. All right. So to review, 0% down does not equal a weak buyer. VA loans are not harder to get through underwriting. They don't take longer to close. The seller doesn't have to pay all the veterans' fees. VA loan appraisals are not significantly tougher, and you can have more than one VA loan at a time. Here are the documents that anyone needs for getting pre-approved for a VA loan. Pay stubs if it's a regular job. LES statement is a leave and earning statement if someone's still in the active duty. It's from DFAS, the Department of Finance, and their recent bank statements, name, address, and phone number of the nearest living relative. That is still a VA requirement that they want to know, left over from actually the Vietnam era. Federal tax returns and W-2s, a DD-214 if their certificate of eligibility is not online, and if a copy of their orders if in process of a PCS or an offer letter and relocating from a job. So if someone's coming out of service, this might happen. This is more common. The only real military base that we have here is Naval Basic Training up in like the Waukegan area. So you'll get some here, but say family member or someone that you know, say they're active duty right now and they're stationed somewhere inside the United States and they're wanting to come home to Illinois. They're relocating, like they want to use their VA loan benefit to purchase a home, similar to a job offer using income. It's like, hey, is there a job that's waiting for them? Is there an offer letter, and how does that relate to their previous training? I mean, simple, like common sense things that you need to take a look at. But they can use their VA home loan benefit for that if they are relocating. Copy of your orders that are in process for the PCS. It's going to be pretty uncommon here in Illinois, but everything else is going to be pertinent. All right. Again, primary benefits of the VA loan: 100% financing up to the conforming loan limit with eligible entitlement. Gift funds are allowed. So not only for the 0% down, if someone's also like family's giving a gift, that could be used in conjunction for closing costs and things like that. Fantastic use. Lower FICO score requirements. VA loan pricing is going to be the most competitive whether someone has a 500 FICO score or an 800 FICO score. It's going to be a better loan option than FHA or conventional for that particular veteran for the lowest rates that are available. Lower interest rates, lower fees because fees are capped to a certain percentage, flexible underwriting, and then also energy efficient improvements can be added to the 100% financing. That's not super common here in Illinois, more common in places like Arizona where they just get more sun. But it is something that is out there. Yep. So you've probably heard of assumable mortgages before, particularly for folks who I'm sitting on a 3% interest rate and my loan is assumable. VA loans are assumable as well, and it doesn't have to be assumed by another veteran. There are some qualifiers to that. It's not necessarily, Sean can advise your clients better at this than I can. If a non-veteran assumes a VA or a veteran's loan, their entitlement is still wrapped up in that loan until it's paid off.
Man,
Go ahead, Kathy, do you have a question?
no, I'm sorry. Someone's knocking on my. Sorry.
So that entitlement there is still wrapped up with that veteran, even though that property is leaving. So if a non-veteran assumes a veteran's loan, and then that non-veteran defaults on that veteran's loan, that wraps up that veteran's entitlement for that's wrapped up on a foreclosure. You can do your VA, I've had this question come up too. It's like, oh, I foreclosed on a VA loan 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I can't use it again. You technically can, because there's two sets of entitlement. Now, the way that you get that entitlement restored is, you either have to pay it back, or you just have to have enough remaining entitlement to be tied up there, because the foreclosure itself will just, think of it like it locks in that period of entitlement until you pay it back to the VA. But if there's enough remaining entitlement that's there, or if you have a down payment where you don't have to need all of your entitlement that's for use, you can still do it. There's still credit guidelines and qualifications. It has to be enough certain time passed. But I've had that come up. It's like, oh, during the financial crisis, like I foreclosed on a VA loan, and I don't think I can do it again. Like, no, you can. With enough time passed, recover credit. You'll have less remaining entitlement unless you pay it back, but you can do it. I'm trying to think of anything else for fully assumable. That's the thing that comes up for assumable loans. It's a long process. Like, expect 3 months of trying to get that loan assumed if you're trying to give it to somebody else, but it can work in the case of a family member. There's no prepayment penalty on a VA loan. There's no mortgage insurance ever, because of the VA entitlement guarantee. So whether it's a 0% down loan, 10%, 5%, there's no mortgage insurance ever, which makes it a lot more competitive than conventional loan, or FHA that requires mortgage insurance regardless of, down payment percentage. The funding fee can be financed in. There's also the available for 100% cash out refinance. Not that I would recommend that for folks, but it is an option that's there. You're not capped at 80% like a conventional loan. Not saying you should do that. I'm just saying it's there for the option for folks who are looking for options and resources for their specific situation. VA loans are a lot easier to refinance. You don't need income qualification or appraisal to refinance. It's actually called an IRRL, an interest rate reduction refinance loan, where it's just, here's my current rate, here's where rates are at right now. If you drop it by at least 5%, there's other closing costs that are associated, but you don't need an appraisal or income to do it. It's actually pretty simple. And seller's concessions of 4% plus other closing costs, they're there. Also, Illinois property tax exemptions for disabled veterans. Sean will probably be able to much better speak about this as well. But so many veterans, like, they don't know about this. They have a qualifying disability rating. They can receive, a reduction on their property taxes or not paying. And it's also potentially, extends on to their surviving spouses as well.
Yeah. So with this, David, so there's different, as people probably know, there's different like percentages. You could be 50% disabled. I think if you're 70 or higher, it's like you kind of get max benefits. So there are tax benefits, real estate tax benefits for disabled veterans. So it's it's only up. So say someone is like has the full benefit, but their home is like $2 million. Okay, it's not going to cover the full tax liability. It's up to a certain amount. Like, I don't know what the amount is. Let's just say it's $400,000. So that's if you have the full benefit. Say if you're 50% disabled, maybe you get a 50% discount up to a certain amount. So I think the takeaway, it's not like, if you have a buyer who's like, I'm 100% disabled, if they have a multi-million-dollar home, it's not going to wipe out that tax liability completely. So just when you're factoring in what can they afford, just kind of keep that in mind. And
Yeah.
with any of these, if you ever have questions, like if someone says, well, he got this, or this acronym, or I just want to make sure that what I'm being told is correct, feel free to call me, and I'm happy to, the military loves acronyms and different things like that. I'm happy to talk through those with you.
Awesome.
Mhm. Perfect. All right. So if you want to go deeper into your VA loan, like make it particularly a part of what you do and who you want to serve. The National Association of Realtors does have an MRP certification. Counsel service members through their families to find housing, help active duty service members and veterans leverage their VA home financing benefits. It differentiates you at realtor.org and realtor.com. You get the access to the MRP logo and marketing materials, and there's a quarterly e-newsletter. So those benefits, reach out to your Main Street, contact for whether that class is available, but that is a designation that you can get if this is particularly a passion of yours.
Is there a yearly subscription to continue that
That I don't
certification?
know. That is, as a Main Street affiliate, I'm not privy to that in particular.
Okay.
But if you want even just more general materials, learning more about the VA loan, this is directly to the real estate professionals VA home loan toolkit directly from the Department of Veteran Affairs. So if you scan that QR code, it's going to take you to a whole bunch of resources for helping to promote and be a better advocate for the VA home loan.
Okay.
Hi, David, question.
Yes.
Is the adding the buyer's commission to the closing document, is it allowed by VA or not?
It is allowed. So going back to that circular, and that's a good point that I need to add to this presentation. I realized that I forgot. So there is, if you go to this Real Estate Professionals VA Home Loan Toolkit, there is a guidance there that says the VA put out a circular right at the time of the NAR settlement that as a local variance, veterans are now able to pay buyers agents commissions for their compensation or buyers compensation. Previously it was a no-go, that was an unallowable fee that veterans could not pay, either transaction fee or buyer's compensation, that they weren't allowed to per VA home loan guidelines. Post NAR settlement, the Department of Veteran Affairs is pretty nimble for that kind of stuff. And they put out a circular then allowing for that to take place. They didn't want veterans to be disadvantaged for wanting to use their available benefits. So they put out a circular that is allowed now. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yes. And my other question is having the cellular roof, having the roof that is paid off, I just forgot the word, or electric charger that will add to the value of the property, would that be any problem?
Oh, are you talking about solar panels?
Solar panel, yes.
Yep. That is allowed, as I recall. I'm trying to think. I mean, you'll need a copy of the lease. Most solar panels, I know Tesla will allow for this, someone has to take over the lease. And there's specific title documentation that you need that essentially that the solar panels in the lease agreement, you're taking a subordinate position to the primary financing, which you should be able to get. Short answer is that shouldn't be an issue, but obviously in your due diligence for the listing presentation, get all of that documentation up front and make sure that your buyers are aware that if they are taking over the lease, that needs to be included in your DTI conversations or your debt to income conversations for qualification. Is that the question you're asking? Did I get it?
Thanks. But it is paid off. It shouldn't be any problem.
It shouldn't be. No.
And sometimes the solar panels are owned by the owner.
Yeah.
So you want to ask the question.
Yeah. If they're owned outright, I see no reason why it would be an issue.
Right.
Thanks.
David, regarding back to the asbestos question, and so say my vet wants to move forward with the purchase, but he wants to do that VA rehab loan or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
How does that process work?
Yes. So you would.
So he would need to replace the asbestos because it's not going to be, it's on the NPR. I don't know that it is, but I'm just guessing.
Yes. So you would, if it's on the minimum, say for instance that it is on the minimum property requirement.
Let's just guess that. Right.
Yeah.
Let's walk
So you
through
could, you could, in theory, like, and say it's everywhere, right?
Right.
It's going to be multiple thousands of dollars, like for, maybe there's some other improvements. Maybe that the house is, not quite at value. You could, in theory, switch it to like a minimal renovation loan for getting that out. And you would be, I mean, this is true for any renovation type of loan. Like you would be able to close before the renovations are done, but then the renovations would have to be completed within generally 6 months after the loan closes.
Right.
So yeah, so you would
And
need
there's
to,
also some village inspection requirements as well.
yeah, in Cook County there would be, which would be separate for like what the VA would care about for, but it's
Right.
definitely like you attorneys have to, and agents, like you're the experts there for the specific village inspections.
Okay.
But
But
yeah,
we
I can get you.
we
I can
could
get
get
you more information
eligible.
on like. I can get you more information on VA renovation loans for like that
Yeah,
specific
if you
process.
could, I would appreciate that. I'm
Yeah.
working with a vet right now, and he's gonna need renovation loans. For the price point that he's looking for.
Yeah.
The homes are not gonna be, they need some love, like you
Yeah.
said earlier.
And you can do like special adaptive housing too if there's any like specific needs that you need to do. Like that is possible as well.
Yeah, that seems to be
Okay.
okay there. Yeah, he's okay there. It's just the price point that we're looking at, they all need updates and
Yeah.
they need some TLC.
Yeah. Some love that
Yeah,
has a value.
yeah. So he would definitely need to get that renovation loan. But awesome.
Mhm.
Anybody else
Perfect.
have
Any
any
other questions?
questions?
I do actually.
Yes.
Do you do the 203Ks specifically yourself, or just your company does it?
Yes. So yeah, so I work for a company. It's called U Mortgage. We are on the broker side of things. So it's not an in-house thing that we do, but the lender partners that we do work with most closely for those renovation loans, they're the experts in it, and they really guide the process in it. So
It's really complicated process.
Yeah.
I was just
It-
wondering.
yeah, I'm a big fan of like just speaking for FHA, I'm a big fan of like the limited ones, limited 203Ks that are under $25,000. You don't need a HUD consultant. You just need to get a licensed contractor and figure out like what the value would be. If you can avoid the HUD consultant, that's great. Not that they're bad people. It's just finding one, making it available, coordinating all the things. It's just, a group project on steroids. But
Yeah, right.
it's just one less person to coordinate with.
I didn't know that you could do it for under 25.
Yeah, it's called a limited 203K.
Nice.
It's designed for minor renovate. Like the tile would be like you're not moving walls, you're not major renov. Like we want to add an addition to our house. That's a full 203K. A limited 203K is new garage door, new furnace, new mine. You're not moving walls or studs or that kind of stuff.
The one I went through, we had to remove all of the what's that coil that they use in the basement for electricity? It's gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's BX cable. All the BX cable had to be removed. So we had to do the 203K loan for that. We had to get it all out of the house because it was part of the village requirement.
Perfect. Anything else? I know we were set for an hour and 30 minutes.
You're right on time. This is awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Sean, too.
No problem. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you, David. That's it's excellent presentation. Like I said, I learned as well. I mean, having known, I've been in the service coming up on 30 years, and
yeah, something I didn't cover. If this is only in the event of like surviving spouses, sometimes will have a VA benefit so that they didn't serve, but they did. If a veteran passed in the line of duty in active service, their VA benefit, their home loan benefits would pass on to their surviving spouse. Now, if that surviving spouse remarries, then the benefit goes away. but if they don't remarry and they still have this surviving spouse benefit that is eligible to them. Sometimes that can come up.
Yeah.
But I
Awesome.
think too, kind of when you're talking about how like veterans don't default on their loans, and I can tell you kind of when people come in, and some soldiers come in very young, 17, 18 years old, right out of high school, and sometimes we joke like, well, just because they think they have checks, they think they have money. So finances are something that's monitored, and especially if they have a security clearance. So it's something I'm not surprised by those stats, because it's something that that the military, I can only really speak for the Army, but I'm sure the other ones are the same, to take time to kind of educate soldiers on personal finance
Mhm.
and the importance of making good on your debts. So veterans are great clients, and like I said, we give a veteran discount. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to call me. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Kathy, can you type Sean's number
I sure
into the
can.
chat? So everybody has Sean's phone number?
I'm going to type it in as well. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. Just feel free to call. It's never a bother. Especially as with realtors, it's like, feel free to call me on the weekend. I know that it's not a Monday through Friday job. And it's not a 9 to 5
It's
job.
never, yeah.
No. So, but
It's
please,
even Christmas and
please know
New
that
Year's.
it's never a bother. I enjoy what I do. And I always,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoy talking, with people. All right. Let me put in. Cell phone is.
Yeah, that way, it'll be part of the recording.
Here we go. So 630-415-8019 is my cell phone.
Perfect.
And there's the office number. Thank you, Kathy.
Sure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate all of you. Yes.
Enjoy your day.
So much.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
David. Great
Thanks
job.
for having me.
Yeah.